what if an AI could find answers not by browsing the web, but by, well, looking inside its own mind? Today, we're going to explore a concept that could completely change how AI agents learn and operate. We're talking about teaching them to think for themselves. So let's dive in.
Seriously, just imagine for a second. You ask an AI a really complex question, and instead of that little pause where you know it's off searching the internet, it just thinks. It reflects, it queries its own vast internal knowledge, and then it gives you this incredibly detailed answer. This isn't science fiction, you know? It's the core idea behind a brand new technique called self-search.
All right, so to really get why this is such a big deal, we first have to talk about the problem with how AIs work right now. Because, see, they have this very powerful but also very, very expensive habit. Right now, when we train an AI to be a helpful agent that can find stuff for us, we basically teach it to use outside tools. Every single time it needs to know something, it has to phone a friend, call up Google or Bing or some other knowledge base. This is pretty much the foundation of how most agentic AI operates today. Now, there's a fancy industry term for this. It's called full real search. And don't get me wrong, it's incredibly powerful. It gives the AI access to the entire internet. But it's got two massive drawbacks. One, it's slow. Making all those calls out to the web takes time. And two, it's crazy expensive because every single one of those queries can cost money and you have to do millions, if not billions of them to train an AI properly. So this is the current state of play. The old way you see here is the AI constantly looking outward, totally dependent on those external search engines for every little thing. It's a huge bottleneck. But what if there's a better way?
And this is where things get really cool. The big breakthrough comes from a kind of surprising realization. The AI might not need to look outside for answers at all, because in a way, it's already swallowed the entire library. The knowledge isn't out there, it's already in there.
I mean, the research paper that inspired this explainer puts it perfectly. It says that after being trained on just massive amounts of data, LLMs encode substantial world knowledge within their parameters. And that's the key right there. The knowledge is already baked into the machine itself. And this brings us right to the core idea, self-search. So instead of making an external call to a search engine, you just prompt the AI to search itself. It literally simulates the whole process, thinking about the question, creating a search query, and then finding the info, all without leaving its own digital brain. It's kind of like searching your own memory instead of having to go pick up a book. And the knowledge really is in there, for sure. This chart shows something called the pass at K-score, which is just a fancy way of saying, what are the odds it finds at least one correct answer? And look at that. The more internal searches the AI is allowed to make, the higher its accuracy gets. It's a clear scaling law. The more it looks inside itself, the more it finds. But, okay, there is a catch. Of course there's a catch. While the AI is great at finding the right answer somewhere in its vast internal library, that's that high pass at K-score, it's actually not very good at knowing which of the many answers it finds is the right one. That's the Maj at K-score, which is much lower. It's like having a library with 1,000 copies of every book, but no librarian to tell you which one is the correct edition. The potential is there, but it needs to be trained. So how do you do that? How do you turn that messy, disorganized internal library into an efficient, reliable source of information? Well, researchers developed a really clever new training method to basically create that expert internal librarian. They call it self-search reinforcement learning, or SSRL for short. It's this awesome training program that uses a reward system, like giving a dog a treat, to teach the AI how to navigate its own brain. It reinforces good search habits and kind of punishes the bad ones, turning the model into its own trusted expert. And the process is surprisingly simple. First, you force the AI to follow a really strict thought process. It has to use these specific tags: think for its reasoning, search to query itself, and then answer for the final result. Second, it gets a reward not just for getting the answer right, but also for following this structure correctly. And third, you just do this millions and millions of times. Through reinforcement learning, the AI gets better and better at finding the right stuff inside its own head. So let's go back to our little comparison chart. Now we can finally fill in that blank. The new way isn't about looking outward anymore. It's all about looking inward. The AI becomes its own search engine. And that, right there, is a massive paradigm shift. Okay, so the theory is super elegant, I love it, but does it actually work? Well, the results are really impressive, and they come with this fantastic twist that I promise you nobody saw coming. First, the payoff. By completely cutting out the external search engine, the training process becomes unbelievably efficient. How much more efficient? A staggering 5.53 times faster. I mean, just think about that for a second. That is a huge reduction in both the time and the money it takes to build these powerful AI agents. So it's faster and cheaper, but is it actually better? Well, the data says, yeah. Look at this. They took the same llama model and trained it the old way with external search, and then trained another one with SSRL. And the results are crystal clear. The SSRL model, relying only on itself, actually gets higher accuracy. It's not just more efficient, it's smarter. And here it is. Here's the twist. You would think, right, that an AI trained in total isolation, only ever talking to itself, would be kind of bad at dealing with the real world. But nope, the exact opposite happened. This introspective training actually supercharged its ability to use real-world tools. It's wild. The technical term for this whole phenomenon is sim-to-real generalization. And all it really means is that an agent can take skills it learned in a simulation, in this case the AI's own internal simulated search party, and then successfully apply them in the real world, like when it actually uses Google. And here is the final killer proof. When they took that SSRL-trained model and finally let it out of its simulated world and gave it a real search engine, its performance got another massive boost. It turns out that by learning to be a great internal librarian first, it became an even better real-world researcher.
So what does this all mean for the future? I mean, this isn't just some cool academic exercise. The implications of creating more self-sufficient AI are, well, they're enormous.
So what's the big takeaway here? We're looking at a future with more autonomous agents that don't need constant handholding. Training costs could absolutely plummet, which would make powerful AI way more accessible and scalable for everybody. And maybe most importantly, by teaching an AI to rely on its own verified knowledge, we could get a powerful new tool to fight AI hallucinations. This whole method really shows that one of the most powerful ways to improve an AI is to teach it introspection. So it leaves us with this one last question. If an AI's greatest teacher is itself, what on earth will it discover next? Thanks for joining this explainer.